destination is more than just a location. It's about the experience. What kind of experience do people get?
There are times that we plan destinations, and then there are times where the destination calls us.
There is also a lot of a very strong connection to spirituality, to agriculture. So that by the time we start talking about visiting now, people coming, maybe concentrating on African diaspora that are coming home to visit, it is fundamentally important that the element of spirituality need to be elevated, need to be explained, need to be inculcated into the entire conversation.
As we look at the economics of the Caribbean territories right now, we recognize that one, many of the Caribbean territories at this point are importing a lot of the food, though they do have fertile, very fertile lands.
So I welcome all of you that are joining us in this conversation. Today is an important topic to look into as we consider the story of a destination. But somebody might even be asking, what is a destination story and why is that even important? Maybe you are looking at a place, you are looking at maybe a geographical area. What kind of story can you find there? That will lead me to make a reflection of a couple of years ago. I was doing a documentary. That documentary actually is streaming in different parts here in Italy, and that documentary actually made me won an award at the Verona International Film Festival, and it's titled "Creating the Blackness of Africa," talking about why do we call ourselves black instead of Africa, something like that. That is actually the thesis of the story. So I was interviewing this Cameroonian professor at the time, and I was asking him the idea that some Euro-Western do have, that Africa do not have a story. And he was looking at me at the point, he actually laughed about it, and then of course we get angry at the point. So he was saying, that is very arrogant to say that even a stone have story. For the fact that the rain have been beating a stone for a long time, that is story, because it tells of the evidence of something that have happened. So to say that an entire continent of a people, the home of humanity, where humanity have been for several thousands of years before they could migrate to other part of the world, and to turn around and say there is no history there, that is too much of a bogus claim for someone to have. But yeah, this was very, very famous, very popular among many people in a Euro-Western society. So a place can have a story. And that is what I would like to touch a little bit as we enter into the conversation, in that this is becoming very important by the time we also get to talk with people, because the people need to understand the story behind where they are going, the story behind what they are going to experience and all of that. Okay, for those of you who might not know me, my name is Obehi Ewanfoh. I'm originally from Nigeria, but I live in Italy. I live in a city called Verona. This is where I've been for the past 20 years. And I really love the experiences that I've made here, because it helped me to be able to do a lot of research, and of course research about the presence of Africans in northern Italy. And that have expanded to what I'm doing today, which is connected to people of African descent from different parts of the world. We are now looking at it as a global family. If I would just started expanding on our organization, our non-profit organization called We Diaspora, which is entirely about connecting the people of African descent to their root, and also connecting among us as a people. Of course, everything started here in the city of Verona, where I currently live today. So in case you want to learn more, you can always visit aclasses.org, where you learn more about what I do and how I do it. Now, every destination has a story. I was referring to this before. It is important that when we get people to be involved in a situation, maybe for example, we are getting them to Africa, we need to have a minimum understanding of what is the story of this place that we are getting people involved in. Now, we have a lot of partners that are working with us in our diaspora tourism experience, which is our tourism package. How we embark on that is that we say that we are not just looking for individuals who are in tourism. That is not what we are looking for. We are looking for people who understand their story and who are also proud of their story if you are in Africa. Now, if you are a non-African, you want to experience the same approach that we are selling to you, which is looking at tourism from a different vantage point. You need to understand that we are presenting this to you from the point of view of Africans, so that you shouldn't be surprised now that we're not going to be sharing all those hunger things that you usually will be told of when you want to hear about Africa. They want to show you of the children that are crying. They want you to come and give them money to eat and all of that, and then you see very dirty people. That is that is what Africa means for some people, but that is not what it means for us. Africa means far more than that. We want people to be seen as proud people that have heritage, people that are proud of their culture. So it is important that people understand this, and we make sure that this is clear for those that are collaborating with us in our tourism experience. And this is fundamentally important, in that you should know your history, you should know your story, because you are going to have to sell that story to other people. So it makes us understand that a destination is more than just a location. It's about the experience. What kind of experience do people get by coming in contact with you, your story, your history, your experiences as a people? But story also create emotion. If you are able to tell the story of your place or the destination you want to take people, you create an emotion, you create an emotional bond, emotional connection that the visitors will remember. I want somebody to pay attention to that. That is entirely what we are trying to create in our tourism experience, is that for the people of African descent that we are encouraging to come to Africa, we need to create an emotional bond with them. We're not just telling them, hey, come and pass through, just come and visit and go. No, we are looking for a way that when you come into Africa through our tourism packages, you have a strong feeling between you and where you are, because you are, in fact, there was a guy I was talking to, he's our partner in Tanzania. I was telling him, you need to make the people feel welcome home. It doesn't matter whether they are originally from Tanzania or their ancestors have been from Tanzania. It doesn't matter at all. Whether they have come from the west or from the east or from the north of Africa, for the moment they are returning home, you need to let them feel at home, like welcome home. We are intentional about that. We are really serious about that. The story also helps to build up narrative, that it helps to help the people that are coming in to build up narrative among themselves. Because now they return home, they are proud of what have happened because they know the story. They know what that place is about. But what are the tools? What kind of tools would you need to be able to discover the story of a destination? I put out 4 points there. I say, you need to talk to the local, the local. You need to talk to the people that are there, those who call that place their home. You see, Africa is not an invention. It's the first place that humanity have experienced existence and is still here today. There are people who have touch to that experiences. Those are the local people. So that if you are coming from New York now, you need to understand that there are people that the people that you are going to meet, they have been here. Their ancestors have been here for so long a time. So you need to connect with them. You need to be able to reach out to them. You need to be able to deal with them. You need to be able to have one-on-one relationship with them. So anyway, I thank all of you that are joining the conversation. I'm still just doing a little presentation so that we can have the basis to start up the conversation. Don't worry, I'm not going to be very long. Believe me, I'm not going to be very long. All right. Yeah. Another thing that is very important in terms of the tool that we need to be able to tell our story or the story of the destination is that we also need to consider the sound and sight of the place. But how do we do that is that we explore the land. We need to go into the land and understand what is here, because the land is communicating to you. There are evidence there, there are artifacts, there are stories, there are rivers, there are mountains. Our ancestors left something there that we will use to communicate to those that are coming in. All these are fundamentally important. Those are the tools that you will need to be able to explore the story of the destination, because we don't just want people to come and go. We want them to feel something. What other thing do we need? We need an emotion. I talked about it before, that we need to be able to build emotional connection with the people. Then we also need to be able to capture the sensory. What do we feel around us? There are a lot of festivals that are taking place in Africa. That is actually one of the things that we're actually targeting, diaspora storytelling experience. We're not just saying, come and visit a place. We are saying, come and be part of it. And to be part of it sometime, for example, like the Agugu Festival, like the Igwe Festival in Benin, like the Eyo Festival in Lagos. These are huge festivals taking place in Nigeria. I am talking of just Nigeria. If you go to other parts of Africa, there are these big events that are taking place. So what we are telling our people is that when you come in, the local people will welcome you. They get you to be part of this story. So that by the time you return, it's different from what you have read in the book, because now you are part of it. The people make you part of it because you are part of them. And in Africa, like you know, I believe you do, everything is part of everything. And we need to take that to our tourism experiences. Now, let me be a little bit faster now. I said, bringing the story to life is fundamentally important. Why is it important? It's important because it helps the people to align their experiences to the visual, to the story that you are telling them, to the element that you are bringing in front of them. If you tell the story of the destination, the people can then identify and align everything that they have seen in line with what you have showed to them. Call it, maybe in time, there will be masquerade. Maybe, for example, you go to Calabar, that is a very important Calabar festival, that you will see a lot of masquerades coming around. In the Igwe Festival too in Benin. Story can help people it can help you as a business owner in tourism to market your business. Because now you are not communicating, you are not just sharing data. You are talking to a human being and you are speaking to their emotion. And it's also a great way to turn your visitor into a lifelong ambassador. What does that mean? Because by the time you get the people to be involved with the story, by the time they return, they will be the one telling your story because they have been part of it. It is not something that they are observing, sitting down and looking at something. No, they have been part of it. And because they have been part of it now, it becomes almost obligation for them to tell the story because they have been touched. That is what we want to make happen in tourism. That is what should happen. We do it more than just statistics. We connect to the human soul. That is fundamentally important. Now, you might want to learn more about this because just now, like I said, I'm not the key speaker here. I'm just sort of giving a background so that for those that are going to be speaking, they have a kind of a little bit of guide of what we are actually here for. But you might want to learn more about storytelling, like we approach it, or tourism, or I don't know, African diaspora. I encourage you to visit aclasses.org because we have thousands of articles. I want to repeat again, thousands of articles that cover everything from storytelling to agri-tourism to businesses to self-improvement. Over 2,500 articles. And we are just starting because we have a lot of people that are contributing continuously. People, professors, PhD holders, of course, ordinary people too. Because it's our way to communicate our experiences to the people. Again, we're talking of the story of destination. All right, now, let's do it this way. I know that Dr. Inola, you were saying I should bring you forward first. But I'm going to bring you in. Believe me. You are going to be the first speaker today. Dr. Inolia is joining us from, anyway, I'm not going to tell your story. You will tell your story. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, all of you. I see your son Tafari. Thank you so much, brother. And I see Donhoff. Thank you so much for being here. And I see Professor Dr. Ikechi. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, all of you that are going to be joining us later, we thank all of you for being here. This is our moment. Let's seize it. Dr. Nolia, it's your turn. Please share with us.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that there are times that we plan destinations, and then there are times where the destination calls us. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story that happened in my life when the destination called me. You see, there are times when we look into our hearts and we are searching for something, but we're not quite sure what it is. And you have two schools of thought. You can either go and plan a destination for a vacation or a purpose, or, you know, you just want to get away. But then there's this other purpose that I want to talk about that a lot of times we do not honor. We don't honor the fact that sometimes the destination calls us. And what do you mean by the destination calls us? So here I was attending a women's retreat in Chile. And, you know, there I am going through the iterations of the retreat, and the organizer brings her elder in play. And it was this beautiful Mapuche tribal leader. Her name was Grandmother Luz Clara. And when I laid eyes on this woman, I was like, oh my God, this woman's in my dreams. I have seen this woman before. So I got the nerve to go up to her and say to her, you know what? You were in my dreams. And I proceed to tell her, and I kind of feel foolish, but she just received the story and she accepted it. And then she walked away. A day later, she came back to me while we're still within the retreat, and she says, I have a message for you. She says to me, you need to go home. And I'm like, what, go home to New York? I was born and raised in New York City, you know, Queens. I'll go home, yeah. If that's what you say, no, hon, you don't understand. You need to go home. You need to go home to Africa. You need to go home and see your people. You need to feel your people. You need to encounter what it feels like in Africa, and you need to be on a pilgrimage. And I'm like, okay, you mean go home with my husband? No, you need to go by yourself. You mean go to Africa and go by myself, and I don't know anything about it. She said, you need to go home. Okay, go home with my girlfriends. No, you need to go by yourself. So I got it. I got the message. We ended up climbing up the Andes, and we did a bit of a vision quest. And I'm talking to God. And I said, okay, God, if you want me to go home to Africa, you need to provide a way. I have no idea how to get to Africa. I don't know anybody in Africa. How am I going to get there? If you provide a way, I will go. The retreat leader, Marcela Lobos, calls us in by putting a drum in. And I walk over right away because I did my prayers. I did everything that I wanted to. I had this conversation with Creator. And while I'm sitting there next to Marcella, she's talking to another woman going, you know, my friend really wants me to go to safari, but I don't really want to go. You know, do you want to go in my place? And she's like, no, I don't want to go, you know, but I know that Enolia wants to go to Africa. And I had no idea that the safari that she was talking about was going to take place in Africa. So this is 5 minutes after I had the conversation with God. That location, wherever that was, what she offered me was calling me. So I told her, yes, I will go. I would love to go. And I go, well, where are they going? She says, I don't know. I just know that they're going to Africa, and they're going to do a walking safari. So I connect with the retreat leader of the walking safari, and I find out that they're going to Kenya. And I found out that they're walking the East and West Tsavo parks 100 miles. It was a walking safari led by the Maasai. And I was like, holy cow, talk about a 5-minute conversation with Creator. And this is what is presented to me 5 minutes later. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And when I decided to do this, I also decided to do a DNA test. And I said, I need to know where I am from in Africa. And a month shy of the DNA test, or a month shy of the safari, the DNA test results come back. And I find out that I am Nigerian Bantu tribes on my father's side, and on my mother's side, I am Kenyan, Luya tribe. And I'm like, the ancestors have just called me home. The ancestors have just called me home. So I take this 10-day, 100-mile walk led by the Maasai. The way that the safari was organized, it was like a moving campground. You were in the camp, You got up early in the morning, you walked 10 miles, and there were 22 men that would pick up the whole campground, move it forward the 10 miles, have everything set up. And then you would finish your walk, come in, eat, shower, etc., etc. I got to know the men. Part of them were the Luya tribe. These were my brothers. They shared with me all of the things that the Luya did, how they carried the machetes and were agricultural, and how they sang and how they made drums and all of the various things that the Luya tribe did. These were my ancestors. And so there I am with this beautiful group, learning, embracing the land, hearing Africa for the first time, waking up to the morning and hearing the sounds of the land, touching the earth, understanding what it means to be in symbiosis, in balance with the animals. The animals weren't interested in us. All of the fears that we have with the lions and the hippos, we walked 20 feet away from hippopods. We watched a group of lions just hanging out. We watched a alligator getting taken down by a jaguar, and the just natural parts of the land. And then the other thing was that I was doing this walk, and I didn't know, because there were a couple of times it was challenging. I fell. When you fall, you don't want to pick yourself back up. But what I didn't realize is that my Maasai brothers were rooting for me to ensure that I walked the 100 miles, because if you couldn't make the 100 miles, you could always go with the camp people who picked up the camps and moved it forward and just drove the extra 10 miles that day and took a break. But when I completed that 100 miles, not only did my African brothers embrace and celebrate me, but it had changed my life. It was a leap of octave. It was a change in my life that warranted that I went back, I no longer worked in corporate. I gave notice on Monday, I was done by Friday. I couldn't do it anymore. It shifted my whole life. I tell you this now, and here I live in Angola, Africa. I've been living here for the last 4 years. Africa called me. The ancestors celebrated me. To me, that walk was the first rite of passage. And this is what that destination did for me. And I celebrated in my heart. I celebrated in the fact that my life has progressed in a direction that I would never dream that it would progress. Now imagine if I had ignored that call. So I'll leave it there. That's my story.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Inolia. That is really, truly beautiful. That is beautiful. I really appreciate that sharing. And I want to believe that essentially, Dr. Kechi, what do you have to say about what is your presentation? Let pick it from there. What do you say?
Okay. No, I was, quite fascinated with her presentation because I have cousins who have similar, experience like hers. My cousins, my paternal cousins, their mom is my dad's first cousin. Both are of blessed memory. Their mom passed, I think, 2 years ago. So they also grew up in Buffalo in New York. And I think one of them is well known. She's into this horoscope thing, but she's a media professor, Dr. Tachi. So Dr. Tachi, their father was a professor in Nigeria. So when she was speaking, I was just thinking about them. I said, wow, but and now she's in Africa. She took a bold step, because there's one thing about this story of destination. When she mentioned calling, being called, and she responded also. So you can see like a cause and effect. It's like a cause and effect thing. And taking that leap is really very fascinating. It's very encouraging. Yes. So for me, I have a short clip or PowerPoint presentation to share. So would you welcome Jay as I get mine, maybe for a minute, then I will share.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Kichi. I appreciate that. So we'll get ready for you. You see, the sharing of Dr. Nolia, that was really very powerful. That was touching. that sort of speak to exactly what this is entirely about, which is connected to the human soul in the conversation. And when we talk about tourism, the reason we are going to need story is for this. So that we are not just talking about statistics, we are really going to get people involved. And you see, Dr. Inolia, you are not telling the story because you have been touched. It's like the baton have been given to you. You have an obligation to tell that story because you feel something in you that you cannot hide. You know, there is this saying that when you hear something, you cannot unhear it. You can pretend you didn't hear it, it's okay, but you cannot unhear what you have heard. If it have touched you, you cannot pretend it didn't touch you. Is very important. So I really want to thank you so much for that. And I'm also happy that you are in that area responding to your call today. We all need to respond to our call. That is how we can live a higher life. That is the way we can live a higher life. All right, so before I pass the mic to Dr. Ikichi, I want to thank Jay Pasqua. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your presence. And of course, Jay is a storytelling expert. Of course, he will also be touching on the importance of storytelling today, as to how we use it in business and also in tourism. All of them are connected now. Jay will be coming up later. Of course, now it's time for Dr. Kichi. Please go ahead and present your story. Yeah, we can see it now.
I wanted to hear that. Okay. Now, okay, this is me. Pardon me, I had to put professor because I don't know if I've told you that I'm now being I'll be announced any moment as an associate professor, a reader, which is quite big for me because at my age and even in my family, I think my eldest sister, is the first professor in the entire family, but because she's the first and I'm the sixth. But we have an extended family. One of my cousins is Nigeria's ambassador to South Sudan. So we are the first cousins. So my story of destinations, I was raised. I cannot talk about the story of my destination from my history. Growing up at the University of Nigeria, a very prestigious place where my parents worked. My father lived about 100 years on this earth, and I'm very proud to talk about him. You can see, okay, he's not even in that picture. You are seeing my godparents in that picture. So, and my godparents, my godfather is in the middle holding me. Can you see that small picture beside me as a baby? Yeah, so my godfather, he was an educationist, and he used to be my father's student or a pupil, and his wife is the one with the cap. Both of them are of blessed memory. Now, in fact, three of them are of blessed memory. The other man holding my hand was, a bishop, an Anglican bishop at the University of Nigeria campus, and then that man, Professor Peter Ezocha, he's late, and his wife, pharmacist Mrs. Rose Ezocha of blessed memory. They held my hand. So like I told you, that man was my father's pupil. So you can see me as a baby. You can see me in nursery school with my friends. I still know that guy beside me. He's in the US. The other one also beside me is in the US. And my godparents were in the US too. In fact, my godmother died in the US in 2015, and then me as a first year student. I didn't study agricultural extension, I studied agricultural economics. So anyway, now the next picture is about, it's still the same picture. Then this is my eldest sister, the professor, and her son. So I was raised at the University of Nigeria, like I said earlier, and I attended a secondary school, which some of us we know, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. We attended some secondary school. That secondary school is an African, secondary school. Of course, Zik of Africa, his children also attended that school. Chinua Achebe of Things Fall Apart. His house was just, it was quite a historic upbringing. seeing a lot of people that their children, we attended and they are there in the same. So we had that early exposure, and that agriculture thing, that's flair and passion for agriculture, all started in that same environment. So, and I've told you about my story as a little child, quite passionate because of my mother's influence. So at the backyard of our building, my mother will always ask me to go and cultivate the soil and all that. So I really count it as a story of graciousness of God. And okay, you can see some of the clips, family pictures. So I was molded really by my family at that early stage. So I quickly, when it was time for me to get into agriculture, I started to delve into agriculture. But I already had a flair for social studies. I love social sciences a lot. Social studies made a lot of meaning to me. I loved history. I love to talk about history. I love to talk about people that have done well, family, the love of family, that's also uh, happened a lot. And there was something that happened in one I think it was in 1990 or 92. I think it was 1990. Some African Americans came to Nigeria for exchange program. So, and I was always at their beck and call. They will always call me to assist them with something, and they were giving me sort, candies. That was the first time I heard about candies. Candies, I was quite small then. You can imagine. So, but I noticed that most of them that are the African Americans, they were always telling me stories. They were always excited around me. They wanted me. So when it was time for them to go back to the US, they were from Colgate University in New York. So when they were about leaving, I was crying because I was feeling that, this is the time when I'm supposed to have boarded more with them and, probably traveled with them, and they are now leaving. I don't know when I will see them again. So, but I've connected with some of them again, when I went to the US for the first time 10 years ago. I also met with I met with one of them also, but anyway, so all these things. I also joined the choir. I used to sing a lot, I sang in the choir, and I was thinking of studying in the choir. So, sorry, studying music. Yeah, because those days we had very good musicologists who trained in Germany, and he worked with WWC Echezona. I don't know if you put up Professor William Wilberforce C Echezona. So he's these are very historic people. Quality people that contributed a lot to the African music. I'm talking about African orchestra. So I was exposed to I don't know if I've told you, Obehi, about Antonio Vivaldi. I've sung a lot about, songs about Antonio Vivaldi's song. I mentioned Antonio Vivaldi because he's Italian and you are in Verona, in Italy. So to tell you, I also sang a lot of Latin songs like Cum Sancto Spiritu. I have, there's so many of them, Canticorum Jubilo and all that. Yeah, so Cantate Domino as well. Yeah, so those are the Latin songs. So what again? Okay, let me just show you a bit of the
thank you
pictures.
so much for that. Maybe, of course, you will come back to again, Dr. Kechi. All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. We have gotten also the background from you. So we're going to be taking it a bit at a time. Now, I think who came before there? I think that was your son. Yeah, so could you say something about the conversation of the day? What is your take from where you are there, talking about the story of destination? Of course, we're looking at tourists now that are coming in. How do we tell the story of the place that they are coming to meet so that we can bond with them, so that we can create a kind of feeling that they will take away as a return to the destination? We hear Dr. Ikechi talking just now of people who came from the US and how they bonded, and when he himself went to the US, he managed to have a real connection with them. They also heard Dr. Nolia talking about that she is now, it's now one of the say in Africa. So she's here, she's been taught, she's actually been captured, if you want to put it like that. No? So now, from where you are, Yasom, how do we tell this story of destination? What is your take on this conversation? Please go.
Greetings, everyone. I guess. Okay, I was just checking to make sure my mic was on. Okay. Yes, I am Yasin Tafari. I am originally from St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean, and so we do have something that's sort of very unique and special in our parts of the globe. However, a lot of the times, what we notice is that a lot of times our stories are not necessarily shared to some extent by us and for us, the majority of population on the territory. In the Caribbean, a lot of the Caribbean islands were colonized, just like in Africa, a lot of the territories were colonized by, you find in a lot of, is that the stories are told, but they're generally told from the perspective of the Europeans. And so you find that there's a lot that is needed in terms of telling the story from the African perspective. It was quite interesting to listen to Enolia. I think she had a very interesting story, and it, when you say sometimes that the destination calls you, I can feel and I can relate, though I have not had your experience yet. I am more than ready to have that experience. Now, from my vantage point, where destination fits in for me, I want to be able to fit into this scope where we now begin to encourage our African brothers and sisters to now visit the Caribbean space. A lot of the times when we have discussions about the diaspora, we do hear about Africans in America, Africans in Canada, Africans in different parts of Europe, but sometimes the Caribbean does not necessarily even fit into the scheme of things. And then you have that lack of understanding to some extent, where those who are on the mainland Africa don't know much about the Caribbean. They may probably hear about the Caribbean, and vice versa. So those who are in the Caribbean hear about Africa, but in a lot of cases too, would have heard about it from a negative standpoint. Most of the time, what is shown on mainstream media is, people starving, looking for handouts, and, that sort of perspective. So there is that need for us to bridge that gap where the Africans in the Caribbean, and most of the Caribbean territories are predominantly African. So that's another thing, versus when you do go to, say, like the US or Canada, and other European territories, you see a mix, and you would be able to find African settlements and areas where we are. But in the Caribbean, like Africa, the leadership is predominantly African, and majority of the people that you're going to see is people who look like us. And so you have that similarity, but yet at the same time there's a huge void, because a lot of the Africans in the Caribbean, they're, in relation to their story, everything was taken away in terms of their spiritual connection, their names, their language, all of whatever it is that they would have had brought down with them was taken away. And so there is that need for the Africans in the Caribbean to learn about the mainland, and for those who are on the mainland to learn and see, what it's like in the Caribbean. So that is where I am seeking to help to bridge that gap, to be able to share the destination when folks do visit from Africa, be able to share the destination from an African, from our African experience, and be able to also glean and learn from them. Because one of the things that you'll find, and I find it when, for example, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the popular African vlogger, Woody Maya. Woody Maya would have visited the Caribbean in recent times. And one of the things that he would have recognized, that some of the Caribbean territories that he visited, when he visited the territories, he could have seen and recognized remnants of cultures and practices that are done in various African groups or settings, that the people are practicing it in the Caribbean, but are not necessarily able to connect it to the origin because they never knew or know of the origin. It's just like things that would have been passed down from maybe their grandparents and so on. But when an African do visit, now they're able to say, well, this was something that, or this is something that is practiced in the Bantu group, or maybe the Ibu group, or maybe, but so these kinds of things are very necessary, and that is part of what I am seeking to do. And as I speak, later on this evening, I'm supposed to have a panel discussion with Ibu Chief to sort of introduce the Caribbean to a bit of what they have been missing. And so there is a huge need for that in terms of destination, and that's part of what we are seeking to do on this front in terms of introducing the Caribbean to the rest of the Africa and bridging that gap.
All right, thank you so much for that. Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's quickly pass the mic to Dunhoff. Dunhoff, what is your take on the conversation of today, looking at the story of destination? What do you also, of course, looking at it also from the point of view of agri-tourism? So, what is your take? What do you think?
So, so I would say it like this. In my mind, I see agritourism as having layers to it, so to speak, I guess. And I'm speaking about it not from personal experience, but from having spent a lot of time researching agritourism as well as African agriculture. And to me, it seems like the agritourism is sort of broken into several different layers, if you want to think about it like that. One of them is the idea of groups that go in some agritourism settings, and they're looking at crops. They're looking at crops and farming and all of that. And to me, the real elements, and I think we've spoken about it some here, is the element of culture, of in African culture, and to be specific. So to me, there's layers of it. Part of it is in the idea of traditional farming methods. We have people that go on agritourism tours, and a really great thing to be able to do would be to literally put traditional tools in people's hands to help them understand what it's like to actually work in traditional methods and techniques. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually do it. They talk about this as how our grandmothers knew when to plant based on moon cycles. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, for example, cultural food experience, where people actually go in on agri-tours and they actually spend time in kitchens cooking traditional foods and going through the rituals of yam pounding, things like that. The other part of it is arts and crafts and indigenous knowledge. So when we talk about that, we talk about the idea of basket weaving with harvested grasses, the idea of people actually seeing and experiencing that firsthand, dyeing fabrics with homegrown indigo, and other things like that, hibiscus, for example. So, the teaching within that setting often can be, based on plant-based medicine and local herbs, the idea of ancestral wellness. That's an aspect that I think often doesn't get covered. But we've also sort of spoken about the element of spirituality. We talk about the idea of libations to the ancestors before planting. And it's a common practice, as I understand it, that's still commonplace. Nature-based prayers, sacred trees, and respect for spirits of the land and water. I will tell you that, I would not put myself to be a religious person, but a spiritual person. And from time to time, I do have spirits that come to me in my dreams. And, I can see things that other people cannot see and experience things that other people have not experienced. I credit a lot of it with my visits to Haiti and to the religious practices that occur there. So I see all of these things sort of tied together in terms of culture, the kind of layers of it, and all the different types of things that can be involved in agritourism, not just simple things like, the farmers that raise maize or avocados or tomatoes, whatever it might be. I mean, it goes far deeper than that. And those are the aspects that to me are really important.
Thank you so much for that, Donhoff. That is fundamentally important, the point that you are raising there. Of course, somebody that is reading it can actually see it, that is a correlation between agriculture and the entire human history. Like Dr. Kechi would say, agriculture is the basic. You need to have that before you can even have how we organize our society, because it's not surprising now that when we begin to trace back how our ancestors begin to settle, they settle because they could domesticate plant. They could plant and harvest. Otherwise, how could you have a settled life? So there is also a lot of a very strong connection to spirituality, to agriculture. So that by the time we start talking about visiting now, people coming, maybe concentrating on African diaspora now, coming home to visit, it is fundamentally important that the element of spirituality need to be elevated, need to be explained, need to be inculcated into the entire conversation. We're not talking about just the industrial type of tourism where people just come and dance and go. No, we're trying to explain what is hidden in that, what make things thing. What are those elements in it that make it relevant? Because now, whether you are a Christian or you are a Muslim, you need to understand that there are some fundamentals that are deeper than just reading the Bible and the Quran. Because the Bible and the Quran, depending on how far we want to go now, we can see that they actually copy from things that have already been there before. So why don't we go there and just feed those things? Instead of maybe looking for somebody who have gone to Harvard to explain to us what we can go there to see. So we can go there to see. That is the point. Thank you so much for that. All right. Jay Pasquale. Jay Pasquale is a storytelling expert. Of course, we are very happy to have him here today. But anyway, I want to quickly point out one thing, because now you can see that we have two groups here. We are merging it together. We are doing it for the purpose of reinforcing this conversation about storytelling. Jay Pasquale and another friend of ours, a good friend, Annie, we have another storytelling series that we used to call the business storytelling series, but we merged it with this storytelling series, and we are we are pivoting towards tourism, because that is the demographic that we are looking into in Aclasses media. But of course, storytelling is relevant in all across. We need story to be able to attract the right audience, to be able to, so that we're not just throwing that information there. We know who we are targeting. So it is important that we know how to leverage the power of storytelling in this area. So Jay Pasquale, I'm happy to have you here, brother. Share with you. I'm sure most of this that we are talking about here sound very familiar to what you have been sharing with me.
Oh my gosh. So many things to to kind of digest. I want to talk about storytelling and how, for me, storytelling and cultures across the globe and not separated us. When I first started doing my storytelling about Guam, that's the island where I'm from, out in the United States, Western Pacific Territory, right? That's where I'm at, or where I'm from. I currently reside in the United States, contiguous United States in Alabama. That's where I'm from. I'm an indigenous person of Guam. I'm Chamorro. That's the indigenous people there. Now, when I first started talking about my culture and my heritage on this storytelling platform that I created on LinkedIn, I thought only Pacific Islanders or people from Guam or nearby islands would be interested in my stories. Truth is, the majority of people outside of that region are much more interested. And I found that fascinating because when I shared nuances of culture, other cultures said, I didn't know that. We have the same thing where I'm from. And when I was listening to Gaston earlier, I was brought back to a story I tell all the time about our connections to our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, because a lot of people don't know that breadfruit is not a native plant to the Caribbean, that it was actually taken from the Pacific and transplanted as a food source for Caribbean slaves. And at first, they did not take to it. They didn't know what it was. And they were forced to eat this new tree, this new fruit from this new tree. And now it's part of the culture there. And this, when I share this story, it just brings people in and seeing the connections that we have across the globe. The other thing that we have a connection with our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean is our love for reggae, the music, roots reggae specifically, because Guam is an unincorporated territory, a political moniker that was bestowed upon us. And because we're a colonial territory of the United States, there's a lot of connections that we see to those wanting more freedom from colonial powers. And when my elders heard the reggae music, it really was part of now what they would say would be the fight for freedom. And it's become ingrained in our society now that we listen to reggae music. So I share all of this so that people can see that storytelling is integral to tourism. And when I heard the gentleman who just spoke about agritourism, one of the things I was thinking about, and you live in Italy, is when people go to Rome and look at all the art and all the architecture in Rome, and especially Roman Catholics, right? There's, even for people who are not Christians or not Catholics, there's still that veneration, that knowledge of sacredness, and they conduct themselves a little differently. Now, some people just don't care. That's going to be found across the globe, but there's still that sacredness that they understand that this is a holy place. And for a lot of indigenous populations across the globe, when people go to visit, right, if we just preface their visit to these sacred locations, that they would have that same thought and same sensitivity to where they are and honor the locations that they visit across the globe. And I think if, there's this movement across the globe that indigenous knowledge can help in sustainable living all across the globe. And there are so many people that want to learn from indigenous populations that if we share this knowledge, it can now be part of tourism. Tourism, again, that's going to be sustainable, not just for just the next generation, but for generations to come. And agritourism can be part of that. And agritourism, like you mentioned, is not just visiting farms, but visiting locations that have that knowledge of sacredness for nature, for spirituality. And I think if we expand on that and the storytelling that goes along with it, I believe that indigenous populations across the globe can benefit from it. And we, as human beings across the globe, will be able to benefit from it as well. The knowledge that will be shared. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to end a little bit with something that that is more of an industrial sense, but we can deconstruct it and see how well this can play across indigenous populations. I shared a story about my grandmother, and my grandmother, on my mom's side, my mom's mom, I cherished her and the knowledge she shared with me. And I mentioned in a poem that I read about my grandmother how she took her coffee. And now these days, people take their coffee with powdered cream or creamer that you can buy at the grocery, and it's already made for coffee. In fact, it's called coffee creamer. But back in the day, my grandmother would take carnation milk from the can. She'd open it up and she'd use a knife to puncture the can and pour out carnation milk into the coffee. Now, she would take, excuse me, either the evaporated milk or the condensed milk. And if she was without sugar, she'd use condensed milk. And that was super sweet. But when I mentioned this in a poem, the people from places across the globe said, that's how we used to do it. That's how we took our coffee. And so what I'm saying in this instance, in this sharing of knowledge and of story, deconstruct that for the indigenous populations. And when we see that there are similarities in how they care for the land, how they care for their people, the spirituality that is shared in that moment can transcend time and space. I'm waxing poetic, but there can be a practical application to it. And I think this is the thing that storytelling can do to advance sustainable tourism across the globe, especially for indigenous populations.
Thank you so much for that, Jay. I appreciate that. I really do. I don't have a challenge with my camera just now. I don't know, it's not showing my face anymore. But anyway, I remember who I am. All right. So, yeah, there is this power of exploring the indigenous story, of really taking into account these experiences of the old. Because that is entirely what we are talking about by connection, by connecting people of African descent in the diaspora to their root or among themselves within the diaspora, or any other people who are interested in this conversation. You see, as we were talking, I'm imagining a farm where we talk of maybe the we talk about the tools, the old tools that were used to cultivate. Now, when you take those tools, whether you call it a whole, the older part, and share it with the younger generation, something great is happening there because you are helping them understand how the people have been living, have been surviving. If you take those tools without explaining them, of course, there are still tools that are still valuable. By the time you wrap it around with story, it becomes even more valuable for people that are seeing them. And as you are doing that, you are bringing this integral connection between those who have been away and those who you are now coming to meet. So I think agritourism is going to be fundamentally important in helping us to reappropriate our narrative, our story, our experiences. So because we are talking about tool, talking about agriculture, talking about cultivation, of course, who else can we ask than Professor Dr. Ikechi himself? Dr. Ikechi, can you hear us? Dr. Ikechi, can you hear us? Okay, I'm not sure he can hear us. All right, so
Very well, why not?
okay.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I listen to everyone. In fact, I'm enjoying them. I enjoyed the last speaker. He spoke, excellently well.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So, talking about the story of a place and looking at the tools that we use to cultivate the land, talking about the possibility of sending people, let me specific, sending people from the diaspora to maybe a village that is cultivating palm wine, for example. Palm wine is a very popular among the Igbo culture. But people don't know how this is actually done. So we are bringing in students now from the US, from California. We are bringing them to somewhere in Enugu. They are not just going to taste palm wine, but they will also see how palm wine is tapped, how it's processed, and how it's served. Can that be relevant?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay. In fact, as if you were looking at what I was, brainstorming and looking at, I am actually from that region. I was born in Enugu area. So when you mentioned Enugu, I was just dangling my head. But this is actually where I come from. Uzuakoli is very historic. It was founded the same time Ibadan was founded. But the government, sometimes the government does a lot of favoritism. So they neglected this region. And those days, they used to have a market, and this area had a major slave market. So it has a port where they were transporting human beings to abroad. So Uzuakoli is in Abia State, is one of the five southeastern states of Nigeria. So, and this is the town actually. So you talked about palm wine. So, and that area is quite agricultural. They used to have a market that serviced the entire, region. It's even outside of people. In fact, I remember in my secondary school, my classmate was telling me how his grandmother used to travel, walk, to the market. And I was so shocked. I said, wow, this is my village where I used to look down on. And, they have a famous cultural festival. You can see me holding my niece. My niece is an immigration specialist, but she took a research on history to unlock the Iloso Festival and the potentials for Africans in diaspora. So I think we will have another conversation for this because she has just finished her research work, and I was doing it alongside because I'm very much interested with the diaspora, African diaspora. So she delved into this area of topic of discussion. She delved into it in her research area. So, and that's why I'm talking about it. It's a festival that is showcasing the Igbo culture. And like I said, Uzuakoli is an area where there's a leper colony there. They have it's very, very historic. I would have played a clip. So these are the way that they dress for the festival. So, and it happens in some market days. Uzuakoli is 5 villages in one. So, and it promotes a lot of, it creates opportunity for jobs. and even the hospitality industry. Of course, agri-tourism is major, in the region. So, and it's, see how the area is getting transformed today. This is the latest update of Uzuakoli. So, and we have seen that this is an opportunity to invite Africans in diaspora, not just Nigerians in diaspora, to come. When they come for this festival, is like 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks festival. We can arrange accommodation for them. We can arrange, some area sites where they will visit in the area. It's quite peaceful. The state is peaceful and is the fastest emerging region. The fastest emerging state in the region. And of course, you know that most of the commissioners and the leaders of the states are even Africans in diaspora. Are the diaspora people there. I know what I'm telling you. It's something that is really, really amazing. I can play a clip if I have the time. I would have delved into South Africa. I would have showed you some cultures of South Africa and Rwanda, where I've also, traveled to. I've lived in South Africa, but I just wanted to concentrate on this other region, which is very familiar with, with me. I don't know if you want me to play it. I can quickly play.
Yeah. If you have to share, if it is brief, yeah, please go ahead and share.
Okay, fantastic. So now I will just play the clip, and I hope people like Yason and Don will. I'm sure they will want me to do, because I featured in a news series of this sometime. They called me and I was answering a lot of questions on the similarities between I've been able to share the link so you can just watch it on your own. So so if we want to bring in Africans in diaspora to come and glean knowledge and tour in cultural landscape, the agricultural potentials, African communities, it's it's a journey that is very, very that will benefit benefit them, and also the Africans. Like now we are, recently we started to talk about bringing, people so that we can have leaders also who have lived, who left for a long time, but they can come back and begin to, to contribute to the leadership, in that region. It's really very interesting. And okay, this is Kigali. I've been to Rwanda how many times now, and of course, they are very agricultural, and even though their country is quite small, about the genocide experience. So, and because this is my area, I'm an agriculture expert, and what has been driving me is all about, food security, how hunger has ravaged the region. Many families, people sleep without eating. So why are people sleeping without eating when there is food, where there is potential for feeding? So this was my visit to Kigali. This is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Rwanda. That is Rwanda's famous, prestigious Professor Kayihura Didas. He's doing quite a lot since he became the Vice Chancellor. A lot is unlocking in Rwanda's foremost university. And you can see cassava. Cassava, they cultivate cassava. Cassava is one of the populous crops of Africa. There are 3 major crops of Africa that are cultivated. And when you tour the region of Africa, you will begin to understand that cassava is not a crop that you play with. It's a root crop, and it has a lot of potentials to unlock an economy because of its viable derivatives or products that can come from it. So you can see the cassava roots harvested. You can see the plants also in the other side. You can see the federal government of Nigeria and the IFAD are working together, and the value chain development programs They are working together. This time around, we are working with the Nigerian Stock Product Research Institute. I showed us a clip of my visit recently to the facility on how we can store cassava, on how we can also derive other products, because it has primary products, it has secondary product, and it's a tertiary products. So, and the demand is very, very high. It's not just for food. What about for industry? And we know we need this for industry. So aside cassava, we also have rice. Rice is one of the 3 most popular crops of Africa. You can see Nigeria is tops, Egypt, and then the rest of Africa, because it's the Africa's giant. You know how the position of Nigeria in driving transformation in the whole of Africa, even though there's a lot of challenges we are having today because of misappropriation of funds, because of what there's no good governance. So that is why we are crying out today in this webinar, saying that this is an opportunity that we have to declare that Africa is in a state of emergency. Nigeria is in a state of emergency with respect to food security. We have a lot, but there is a challenge of coordination of resources management. That is the challenge. You can see maize. Maize is the 3rd most popular crop of Africa. And I understand that also, that Nigeria has a potential of driving this. And we know that in the whole of Africa, Africa is made up of 5 physical regions. That is, we have ECOWAS region, that is Economic Community of West African States. So it's in West African region. Then we also have Northern Africa. I should have stayed with Northern African region, which is, of course, the closest to Europe. And that is where we have Libya, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, and Algeria. Outside of that region is Sub-Saharan Africa. So Sub-Saharan African region is where you get West African region, East African region, South African region, and then, of course, Central African region. And that is where you will now begin to realize that Africa is so, so blessed. And youth in agribusiness or youth in agritourism should pay more attention in what? They should pay more attention in the business side of things, creating business models, and this will be able to unlock our economy, Africa's economy. So by the time people come around for tourism, you know the doors that will open up, and we have value chain, we have value added profits, we have supply, in the supply chain. So there's a lot of profits. Yeah, thank you. Let me stop here.
For that, Dr. Kechi. Of course, you are with us. You are not going anywhere. You are the leader of this conversation on the part of agriculture. There is no doubt that you are going to be around for a long time to also inspire younger generation to believe in what we are talking about here. Now, imagine, for example, that as we are talking about agritourism, that we are planning an expedition of, say, 50 or 500 people that are moving in from Europe to a part, let's say in Tanzania, for example, so that we don't see that we are over promoting Nigeria, or maybe in Ghana, for example, so that they are not coming in just to see. We are inviting them to come in and be part of what is happening, so that you can enter into the Ghanaian agricultural system, and they will show you how they cultivate, how they sow, how they reap. You see, what is going to happen when this situation like this are well coordinated is that idea will hit an idea. And by the time these people return home, they will start noticing the possibility of collaboration. Because now you would have been able to understand, is there any problem there? Is there any possibility there? Is there any profit there? Because why not? They also want to make profit. Imagine that the people that we are bringing in are business people who can possibly invest. And now we are telling you that you can, okay, let me go back to Nigeria again, that Nigeria is the world leading producer of cassava. And then you start asking yourself, but what can cassava do? You see, a couple of days ago, I was in Milan. I went to speak to some people in government office in Milan. I'm going to have an interview tomorrow with one of them. Is a regional leader of the political party that is called Brother of Italy, Fratelli d'Italia. I'm going to be interviewing him tomorrow. So I was telling them about cassava, the potential, because what we are trying to initiate between Milan Lagos is to have this relationship. Since Milan is the capital, is the economic capital of Italy, and Lagos is the economic capital of Nigeria, we are saying, let's build up this relationship. Let's see how we can profit from each other. Believe me, it is possible. It is possible, not only between Milan and Lagos, it is possible all across that we, as people of African descent in the rest of the world, we can act as a conduit to communicate this information, to let the people know that it is possible to do business with Africa. We are not just saying, come and donate money to feed a hungry person. We are not interested in that. We are saying, let's do business that can go to transporting, exchanging billions of dollars. It is possible. Do we have something that we can bring into your economy? Is there something that you can also bring into our economy? If that is possible, then let's do something. Let's work it out. So from starting just talking about agriculture, talking about coming to visit, another idea will be coming up. And believe me, it is possible. Let's keep hammering on it. We can do this. All right, now let's go to Yasau. Yasau, you see, there was a time we were talking about this possibility of helping somebody understand that when we talk about tourism, we are letting you understand that you can actually be part of the entire process, from harvesting to producing the crop, to show you how it is done, whether we are talking of Africa or in the Caribbean. Can you refresh our memory on that?
Well, you know, as I listened to the conversation, I heard earlier on someone spoke about, you know, spirituality, and for some reason I am feeling like I am in church right now, you know, and you know, you guys are singing to the choir here, you know, in terms of the conversation that I'm hearing here. This is just exactly where I am, and it seems as if I'm in the midst of the people who now, as we're having this conversation, is cementing the fact that this is what we need to do. And the main thing that is a hindrance sometimes in this quest is the finance to make or realize some of these things. And so I'm hopeful that Dr. Aikeche, and I'm you know, so much happy that he made that presentation in terms of like the rice and showing how, you know, that just, you know, visitors being able to see the process can be so brain re-engineering to even just the visitors. Now, personally, there are a few projects that I am proposing that's along that line in terms of creating that bridge between agriculture and tourism. It is quite important, and especially in the Caribbean, where tourism was sort of used to technically kind of replace agriculture as the main industry after the enslavement era, so to speak. So there was a sort of pushback in terms of, you know, not wanting the younger ones to get too involved in the agricultural industry because of the slavery sentimentalities and so on. However, as we look at the economics of the Caribbean territories right now, we recognize that, one, many of the Caribbean territories at this point are importing a lot of the food, though they do have fertile, very fertile lands. And I'm certain that it's a similar situation in Africa. So sometimes when we have these stories and we share these stories, we see the similarities and the need for us to take very similar actions. And so we have that scenario when, so in the Caribbean, in terms of tourism, though they're seeking to build a tourism industry, you have a scenario where you're seeking to bring the tourists in to get the foreign exchange in one hand. But if you don't have your agricultural industry set up properly, where you can then feed these people when they come in, then you're taking the foreign exchange in one hand and passing it out in the other, in terms of seeking to import the food to feed the same people that you're trying to bring in. Now, if you are supposed to reverse that a bit and say, hey, let's focus on our agro industry so that one, we can reduce our import bill and feed our people, make sure that we can sustain ourselves and have that surplus that we can turn into value-added products that we can share with the folks when they get here, and also they can even take back as souvenirs when they're able to purchase some of the value-added products. And so with that sort of mindset, I have a few projects that is along that line. I was fortunate to be able to work as a part of an institution on St. Kitts and Nevis that had that vision, a project called Kittish and Hill or Belmont Farm. For those of you who are listening, you can probably eventually research that project. It's still up and running, but the basis of it was a farm to table hotel villas setting. Now, one of the things that struck me as I was the head organic farmer on that project, two activities that I was very instrumental in dealing with was a nursery tour breakfast and a farm table dinner, where we had a dining setting with the outdoor kitchen in the middle of a farm. So the folks visiting were able to see the chef, go out and harvest the tomatoes and everything. And you had the grill on the outside, he has his oven on the outside, and he's able to prepare that in front of you and have the story being shared with you. Then we had the nursery breakfast store, where we took you through the nursery, where you would be able to see a lot of the different plants, learn about the different tropical plants and fruits, and whatever was in season, you will get a chance to taste and sample. Now, one of the things that I learned and I recognize a lot from those activities was how ignorant a lot of people are to nature and to their food, in the sense of, you find a lot of people, especially in the bigger countries, Canada, America, and so on, who have never really visited a farm. Their experience with food is from the shelves of the supermarket. And so even just the basic to connect the fruit to the tree that it comes from is an experience for them. That it's the first time they've ever seen a pepper tree. It's the first time they've ever seen an eggplant tree, and so that experience would have helped me to see the need for replicating this model. And so a couple of my projects are along that line similarly, and I am leaving the US in a couple of days and I'm heading back to St. Kitts and Nevis. So this topic is very timely, because one of the projects that I'm working on is I have a nursery that's operational on St. Kitts and Nevis and a small little superette, and I'm going to be marrying both and introducing the tour aspect of it, where folks will be able to come and tour and enjoy some of the fresh juices and fresh fruits. And the spiritual side, Rastafari has been given a lot of credence on St. Kitts and Nevis in recent times. They have decriminalized cannabis, and Rastafari has been given credence to operate without having to pay for licenses where that is concerned. So I'm going to be having a 420 lounge as well, that is going to give folks that opportunity to learn about Rastafari, the culture and the foods and how we cook it and how it's being prepared and all that. So you're going to be seeing the videos of this coming shortly. So Don and the others, I'll be sharing this with you as it progresses. So this, in terms of a destination, St. Kitts and Nevis, that's going to be the destination to add to what we are talking about here in the diaspora.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, your son. You're doing something. You're doing things that are absolutely wonderful there in St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, we are together. We are together in the diaspora here because we are one big family, giant family. That is who we are. That's what we are. All right, so the time is not our friend, is always calling, so we need to also respect that. So what we are going to do now, we're going to give the very last comment from each side, So let's start with Don Hoff. Don Hoff, what is your final thought here? Please be very brief as we move towards the end of the conversation. Please go.
Well, I have to say, the conversation has been amazing among all of us. I appreciate Dr. Akechi and the notion of the information that he shared and the opportunity to promote brain reengineering. Yasan, you've been a great asset in working with us in Grow Mobile and in the Caribbean. And the others, I mean, it's wonderful to meet each and every one of you. Agritourism is a hotspot, I believe, and has many possibilities. And so, as we work towards trying to make Grow Mobile a reality, we want to take part in agritourism as well. So, big ups to everyone involved in it.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. We appreciate you, Don Hoff. Thank you. All right, so we'll pass the mic now to Jay. Jay, what is your final take here? What do you leave the people with?
Well, thank you, Obehi. I think that a lot of information has been shared, and the insights is invaluable. I think, I just listening to Dr. Akechi and of course Yasan and Don, there's so many things that we can learn from some of the projects that they're taking part in and the information that they're sharing. Let me just explain where I'm from. Guam is really, Dr. Akechi talked about food security. A majority of the food, more than 90% of the food, is imported. And just like Yasan was saying, we have rich, fertile land, volcanic and limestone, on an island. Why can't we grow our own food? And we have indigenous, native, ancestral knowledge within our soul and at our fingertips. And I believe that that can help in promoting not only sustainability locally, but help other regions as well across the globe. Dr. Akechi talked about cassava. Cassava is made and grown, cultivated on the island by little farmers, and it's just mom and pop operations. But I think it does have this ability to grow and become even bigger. Listen to this, it's called tamales. Tamales is a Spanish word, but we grow it, we make it into this food called tamales, a sweet tamales. We also have rice. Our ancestors cultivated rice on this island thousands of years before even Europeans set foot upon it, and yet we don't grow it today. These are the things that, based on ancestral knowledge, we can cultivate, and I'm using this word, cultivate again, and understand that it can help not only the locals, but the world in general. The other thing, man, when you said palm wine, I nearly fell off my chair, because palm wine is something that we enjoy as well on the island. There's so many things across the globe that connect us as human beings. And if we just look to our past, look to our ancestors, look to the knowledge that has been passed down for generations, we can really grow interest, not only for the local population, but populations across the globe. And we can talk about sustainability from a practical sense, but also from a business sense that can really impact us as a human race. And I believe that's where we should begin. And I believe that's where tourism can grow and flourish.
Thank you so much for that, Jay. That was really beautiful. That was really beautiful. But you know one thing, I think I was sort of surprised. By the way, as I pass the mic to Dr. Kichi just now, maybe he can also confirm that. I didn't know that you were also doing palm wine there in in America. Wow, that is beautiful, though. You see, there is a lot that we are doing here that maybe some person might not see value in, but that is really valuable. We are connected among ourselves. And as we are doing that, we are discovering things that are valuable among us. And we're also beginning to see that there is actually this connection that we might not think it is there, but it is there. There is this deep connection among us, this knowledge that our ancestors have had for a very long time. We need to explore them, continue to explore them. Absolutely. All right, so let me pass the mic to Dr. Kichi. What is your take? What do you leave the people with as we come to the end of the conversation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you also, fellow panelists. I lived in South Africa during my postdoc, and I wanted to talk a bit just briefly, and like I'm at the closing end. This is a map of South Africa, and this is a region in the SADC. The SADC means Southern African Development Community countries. So South Africa services virtually all the areas in the SADC region. So this is South Africa. So there's a country called Botswana. Botswana's currency is higher than rand. Botswana currency is pula. Botswana imports virtually almost, all their crops, crops that they consume. So, and South Africa is, you can see their potential. You can see grains, and, a major part of grains that grows there is maize. You can see sugar, forestry is there, which is, of course, an aspect of tourism, major aspect. Forestry and tourism goes together. You know that. And then we have vegetables from horticulture and fruits as well, and others. I wouldn't want to dwell on this. And I just wanted to showcase this. This is the region I lived, in the coastal region. South Africa is, I don't know if anyone here has been to South Africa, but South Africa is an African country with a difference. I know that a lot has happened. A lot of, we've had a lot of challenges in South Africa recently, but I think, it's also a country that has the potential to move forward. So I think I will also leave us today, by saying that this is the season that we need to walk the talk. I've heard everyone speak. The conversations about transforming Africa's economy through through agro-tourism or through anything, agriculture is the beginning. Then, of course, it moves to the, by the time it gets to the end user, between the, farming or agriculture and the end user, you can see business side, you can see tourism, agri-tourism, you can see supply chain, you see value chain, and the consumer, the consumer's preferences differ. Yeah, so but this season, a lot of people are having nutritional problems, health problems, and agri-tourism has a lot of potential to also help people to stay healthy, to stay longer, and all of that. So I welcome you. I'm open. You can find me up on LinkedIn. I'm working with Obehi. We are working together with even Don. Don's Grow Mobile. We had talked about it before. We need to take that conversation to the next level. Yason also has been giving us a lot of Caribbean, talk. Yeah, so we have a lot to do together. Jay, it's nice to meet you today. We take this conversation to the next level. Let us know that whatever we are doing is not just for us, it's for posterity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Obi,
Yeah.
one minute before we close off. One of the key things that I think the Caribbean possesses is due to our size and the population in some cases, the real possibilities of having demo models, smaller versions of what we're seeking to do on a larger scale. And like I've said on previous discussions, one of the challenges is when we do talk agri-projects and agri-tourism to some extent, it seems abstract to some extent to investors. So being able to have a demo project where they can now literally see it in work is what I think is necessary. So in our funding, let us seek to look at being able to do it, but at least do it at a smaller scale. And that would also encourage tourists from Africa as well to come and see the Caribbean and also see investment opportunities that's available in the Caribbean as well. So that's my final wrap up, and that's what I would want to leave our people with. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, yes.